Hello, everybody. We are live. I am here with Tanya. I'm going to do a quick little click here on go live on Instagram and see if it'll work for us. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And if it doesn't, that's okay. Oh, it looks like it's going. So that's fantastic. So I have Tanya with us today, and I do want to thank everybody that's joining us live. I want to thank everybody that's joining it recorded after the fact. We appreciate you being here. Tanya and I have met, but not really had a chance to have very long conversations. We've always kind of been headed in a different direction at the time that we've seen each other. So the cool thing about today's conversation is you're going to be watching us find out a lot of stuff about each other for the first time. Though again, we have communicated outside of this conversation. So with that said, I want to let Tanya introduce herself, tell you about who she is and what she does, and then we'll dig in and we'll chat.
Awesome. Thanks, Deb. Yes, so I'm Tanya Lechner, and I'm the founder of the Sunshine Real Estate team. I actually have a team of 3 agents in San Antonio, Texas. I've been a real estate agent myself for 7 years and decided to start a team 2 years ago because I thought I was knew what I was doing after 5 years of being an agent and wanted to actually teach others. Like that was a big passion of mine, is to teach others, which I can do with real estate, but I want to teach other agents to become really good agents. And so that's why I decided to branch out and start a team. And I love just being able to help people sell their house and get the most money for their house, and then teach my agents to do the same thing.
Yeah, and real estate's tough. So when you don't understand real estate or don't know much about it, you don't realize all of the intricacies and things that you have to find out. And within the last year and a half, have happened to have conversations with people who do real estate and really hearing all of the stuff that you have to be aware of and keeping on top of during that process. I'm like, it's a lot to juggle. I want to ask, which you've talked about this before, I don't know, but I love the word sunshine. I've always liked that word. I think that we all can relate to it because we know what the sun looks like. We know what it feels like. We know the importance of the sun. So it's got all those positive connotations to it. As a kid, my mom used to sing, "You are my sunshine." And so I've always kind of had an affection for that phrase. I'm curious to hear what drew you to that as a business name, because you see it and you automatically feel it has a positive association. What made that be for you? This is the name I'm going to call my business.
I love that question. So actually, I feel like it just resonates with me because I'm very positive and happy like 95% of the time. And I actually asked a few friends just to see like what kind of name they thought would be best for just me, because I didn't want to be the Tanya Lechner team or group. That's just not like my style. And so I had 2 names picked out. One of them was Sunshine because I love, I just feel like just wanted to spread the light, right? And the other one was Champagne because I like celebrating at closing and things like that. And they just felt like Sunshine really resonated with my personality and who I am as a person. And so I felt like it was a good move, and I haven't looked back. I love actually being able to market it on all of my material and everything, because I feel like it just kind of makes it like a difference in the way that people see me, because they feel like more positive. And when they see sun out, they're like, hey, I can think of my brand. So it's,
Right.
It's twofold. People are always thinking about me.
I love it. And I mean, from just my initial conversation with you, even I could feel that sunshine thing. Because a lot of times people will say, like, I like to make people feel good. And they truly do. But there are also people who just like radiate it, right? It's a part of their being. And you very much have that joy that's contagious when you're around. And because of what I said about the real estate world and how complex it can be, and certainly for both sellers and buyers and all of the different facets of it, it can be really stressful. And having somebody who's going to want to try to make that as positive experience as possible, especially since it is a huge, happy thing, despite the stress that comes along with it, I think that that's important. What are some of the ways that you talked about making people feel good and shining the light, that you apply that when you're helping people through the real estate process, in terms of what are some of the practical strategies you use to try to make it easier for people and something that can be really enjoyable?
So something that we like pride ourselves on as a team is educating people about the process, because it is so in depth, and people don't realize everything that goes into it, like from beginning to end, whether you're buying or selling. We want to make sure that you have a full understanding, and setting those expectations is super important, because you just, even people that have bought like 5 or 6 times don't know everything that goes into it the 5th or 6th time. So I try to be as thorough as possible up front and say, hey, it may not all be sunshine and rainbows. There's going to be some times when shit hits the fan, right?
Right.
So it's like you have to set those expectations up front and make sure that people are aware of things that can happen. And that way, when they don't happen, they're like, wow, that was like the best experience ever. And when they do, they are like, thanks for letting me know ahead of time. Otherwise, I would have been like, let's get out of the deal. Like, I don't want to buy anymore.
Yeah, I love that. I think that for all things that we really encounter in life that are difficult, they're much easier to get through when we have an understanding of what's going to come next, whether it be medical, relationship, something that you're learning, right? When you have that understanding of the expectations of other people involved, if that's the case, or just what you're going to need, you have a little bit better chance to kind of get your head around what do I have to do next and be prepared for it. So I think that that's fantastic, right? And I think that that is, like you said, it's part of the sunshine, is letting people know that, hey, I'm going to shine light on some of the things that are going to be a little bit difficult to get through here, or that could be difficult to get through, so that when we reach those, you're already prepared in advance. And interesting that you said people that have, done it 5 or 6 times before and still don't know the process. And I imagine part of that is also every time is different, right? There's always going to be things that are going to come up that are not applicable to every other situation that you've been through. Have you always been fascinated in real estate? Like, was this something that you knew for many years you wanted to get interested in, or was it something that you kind of found your way to and then realized you were really good at it and really liked it?
I actually found my way to it. I didn't become an agent until I was almost 30. I was in the corporate world and decided that climbing the ladder wasn't for me. I didn't like showing up to the office 8 to 5, and that wasn't like in my soul, like things that I wanted to do. And one of my good friends was a realtor. And so I saw that she was like hanging out at her house and doing fun things. And of course, that's not what real estate is, but she made it look a lot easier than it is. And then also, I listened to a podcast, Bigger Pockets, which is about real estate investing. And it was really interesting to me how people were making money and, getting passive income going that route. So I bought my first investment property, a rental, while I was in the corporate world, and then realized that, my friend who is an agent didn't really know much about like the investing side of
Mm.
the business. And so I felt like I could provide value there. And so I just got my license for myself to learn and probably buy my own properties. And then after that, I just realized that I was good with clients, because one of my friends sent me somebody to help her buy a house. And I was like, are you sure? Like, I just got my license. But I loved showing her around like the neighborhoods and looking at houses and helping her through the process as I was learning myself. So it was only my second time. But it was ever since then, like she sent me people, and then other people have sent me people. And so I realized like that was my like calling, I guess. Like I was really good at it. So then I quit my job and they're like, no, don't go. But I knew I had a place to go back to, like if things didn't work out.
Right.
Really nice.
Yeah, I completely relate to the learning something to do it myself. Like I'm like that too. Sometimes when you go to do something and you realize that there's not a resource that you can turn to in the way that you need to, you're like, all right, well, I'm going to make myself this resource because I need to have all this additional information. And I think that that says a lot about too your core belief there in shining a light and making things as easy as possible. It has to do with knowledge and knowing those things. You can't teach somebody else those expectations if you don't know them yourself. And I think you strike me as the type of person who, when you don't know something, says, I don't know this, so let me get back to you on that. Let me check that information. That goes a long way in forming relationships and stuff like that. Now, so it's interesting because my question that I was going to ask, you kind of just answered, because I was going to say, have you applied a lot of what you've learned in your strategies into your own purchasing? It sounds like that was what started the whole process off for you, was learning how to become a real estate agent or learning real estate in order to make that rental property. And so is one of the things that you do in addition to the actual real estate process, it sounds like you're also coaching other people on how to be realtors. I mean, you've got some people on your team, but I think it sounds like you're probably bringing in other people too who are saying, hey, how could I do this if I wanted to do this? Do you find yourself in those conversations?
Yes. Yeah, actually, I do occasional, like, trainings for other agents too, like,
Okay.
whether they're new or experienced and just wanna know more about different things that happen in the industry, and I love it, like, I'm super passionate about being able to help other people understand, like, how to become a good agent because I feel like the industry is really, broken, like, there's a lot of bad agents that don't have integrity and they don't like I've worked with agents who just they're not representing their clients the way that they should.
Mm.
And so that's kind of I mean it's like a really big goal of mine, but I would love to revolutionize the industry and make it like something that people are not like, oh, you're a realtor, ooh, and cringe, right? Like I cringe saying that I'm a realtor because people are like associating it with a car salesman most of the time.
Mm. I love that for you, the revolutionizing part. I see that happening. I think a huge part of that is just having the conversations too. Like what you just said about that, you feel uncomfortable saying that you're a realtor because people have those misconceptions about it. So it's having the conversations and saying, I'm a realtor and I know that there's misconceptions about that. But let's talk about the things that can be done. And I think in any industry, you're going to have people that are going to not be putting the best interest of the people they're serving first, right? That's going to happen. That's going to happen anywhere. So I don't know that I think that real estate is any worse than other industries. I just think it might be maybe become more of it's become colloquial, right? To kind of be like, oh, a realtor, like you said, think of it as a salesman. Because in that matter, I've had car salesmen that are delightful and actually listen to what you're saying and think of those things as well. Um, what are some of the obstacles? I mean, without because you're speaking positively about revolutionizing the industry, and I know that there are some definite challenges right now with the economy and with understanding the market and what are the interest rates. And so, when you're advising clients, you're not just talking to them about what is the baseline of the house that they can afford and what are the features that they want, but you're having to talk to them about what is the amount of investment that they can make and loans and things like that in order to make those next steps, because there's times where a deal is really waiting on things to get approved on the bank side. So what are some of the challenges with that right now with I mean, what I think in my non-real estate educated perception with the market and the real estate right now?
So it is very volatile, like the rates going up and or coming down. Like there's no real prediction. Nobody wants to say, yeah, they're going to go down because of the election, or yeah, they're going to
Right.
continue to go up. Like so, people have been sitting on the sidelines waiting to see, but it's still a cyclical market, and people are still coming in like now because of the spring, and people are going to be coming in the summer looking for houses. So it's played a part, like the financing side of things, as far as the rates go, but it hasn't like completely ruined the market or anything like that.
Okay.
It's just you have to do a better job of explaining to buyers like, yeah, your payment's going to be a little bit more than it was 2 years ago, but now you can buy a house that you don't have to pay $100,000 over asking for because the market isn't crazy and there's not 20 people trying to come in and buy the same house. So there's pros and cons that come with the rate increase, but like what it comes down to again, like kind of we talked about before, was setting the expectations and making sure people understand what to expect.
Right. So that's interesting too. So do you feel it's more of a buyer's or a seller's market right now?
Right now, it's definitely a buyer's market. 100.
Interesting. Because
And
we like in this area, the houses are so expensive, like much, much, much more expensive than 2 years ago, even. But it's still in the interest of the buyers, you feel.
yes, in San Antonio. So I
Oh,
think
okay.
California might be a little bit different, but like in
Okay.
our part of Texas, buyers have the upper hand. Like things we used to be able to negotiate that sellers would cover now, or buyers would have to pay for now, sellers pay for, which is how I consider a seller compared to a buyer.
Gotcha. Okay, interesting. And so that might still be the case here. I was just noticing the housing prices going up and up and up, and I was like, wow. But at the same time, those houses are also not selling, so maybe their prices are going to have to come down before they actually sell the house. So from a negotiating perspective, right? And do you tend to, so how does it generally work? Do people like, do you have somebody you're representing? I mean, I guess it's on both sides, right? Somebody who's selling comes to you and they say, I'm selling a house, help me. Like, what does that process look like?
Like from when somebody comes in through.
Yeah, like from somebody who's selling. So like let's take it from the seller's perspective. They come to you and what do they have to do if they want to work with you? They're like, I want to sell my house.
So if say just somebody gives me a call and wants to know how do they sell their house, I always suggest that we meet in person. I'll come over to their house, take a look at it, and what we discuss, it's basically a seller's consultation. I'll go over there, I'll take a tour of the house, and then discuss what to expect during the process. Like I mentioned, like we go over the education part of it, which is
Right.
there's a prep phase. You want to prepare your home for sale. And then there, which, can consist of either doing repairs and having to replace carpet, whatever the case, whatever
Right.
it comes down to. And then there's the marketing phase, which taking pictures, getting everything ready to go on the market. So you want to make sure that you have like the best marketing materials, which is why you get professional photography and staging and, all of the
Right.
things which people might not think about. You have to make sure that the first impression is literally like the most important. And then the third, before I like go off topic on that, the third part of selling your house is the go live, which is we go on the market, and that can take anywhere. Once we get on the market, it can take anywhere from like 30 days all the way up to like I have some that are on the market for like 120 days because the market has been a little bit more stagnant. And
Right.
then the under contract phase is something that I discuss with my seller.
Right.
And once they have a good understanding of what that looks like, then we talk about like what they can price their home at based on doing certain repairs and having to compare with other houses that are in the neighborhood, everything like that. And you were spot on about house prices going up and up and up. Like it's kind of wild, but I don't see them coming down because all the houses are still selling. They're just taking longer to sell.
Yeah. Well, and that's the staging. So I'd love to talk about the staging because I am I'm very open about the fact that I don't have a great eye for that stuff. So like I could tell you what I like and what I don't like, and I can walk in a room and I can say like what are the specific features. But if you give me like a blank space, I'm not great at putting things together in a way that like looks like you walk and go like, wow, like I can pick out a great painting and put it on a wall. But like there are people who can walk in and they'll pick things that I think like that's not an attractive piece of furniture. And then they put it in the room and I'm like, that's the most attractive piece of furniture I've ever seen, the way that that gets displayed. So do you do the staging? Because that's a real skill set.
No. So that is
Oh,
a real
okay.
skill set. Yeah, you're 100% right. And I don't have it either. I'll tell everybody that. I mean, I can go onto Pinterest and put some things together, but like the staging, I do hire somebody for that because
Okay.
it's I feel like my skill set is around selling the house and making it look good, but like in the marketing aspect of things, and then the stager does a really great job doing it. She just makes it look so homey when people walk in. They don't even realize some of the homes are vacant that I list, and they don't even realize nobody lives there. Like it's just they're like, oh wow, and it just helps people understand
Wow.
like what you can do with certain rooms too, because so a lot of times you're like, oh, this space isn't big enough for a couch or a TV, but if she puts something in there, then they're like, wow, this room's huge. Like it's so interesting when you put furniture into something, how big the space ends up looking.
Yeah, I've heard that too. And I guess there's two parts to it because sometimes you tell people you got to buy stuff, or if it's an empty house, you have to purchase stuff. But sometimes it's like they come into a room that's already got its decor and they just like turn a chair and, the way the blanket's laid and things like that. And you're like that, it just opens the space up. So that's a real knack. So do you tend to, is it like a blanket recommendation? That you need to have a stager come in, or is it like you sometimes can kind of tell, and I'm sure you don't necessarily say that straight up to the person, but like this space is going to need staging in order to sell? Like,
Yeah.
what does that look like? Is it just like you're going to need staging, or is there like definitely some people where you're like, this one needs more help than others may have?
Yes, so there's options depending on what kind of furniture is there. And I would suggest like we could either, move a couple pieces of furniture and make it work. Depending on the price point too. Like if it's a lower price, it's not quite as important to do all of the things. But I definitely once I go into a house, I'm like, okay, we'll just have to use your furniture and do what we can with it. And then other times I'm like, all right, we're gonna have to bring all new furniture in here.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely times.
Yeah, I mean, there's some houses that I go in that it feels like they've been staged. The people just are really good at decorating, right? And that's again, like that's that particular skill set. And I think it has to do with colors too. What colors make people feel more inclined? Um, Sunlight, right? Sunlight in a room definitely is a big piece to getting people to sell stuff like that. Do you notice yourself now from having done sales? Do you look at houses when you're out and about and kind of think of them from a sales perspective? Like if that house was going to be sold, this would be needed, or about this is the price, right? Do you like think like a realtor all the time?
Yeah, I feel like it's ingrained now. Like I've seen so many listings online that have horrible pictures, and I'm like, why did that person use this agent? Like these pictures are horrible. Like the people are still taking pictures in the bathrooms where the flash is coming, or like you could see
I
yourself
know.
here. I'm like, seriously, is this a joke? Like
I
people have made
know.
fun of this for a long time now. But yeah, and then even when I go like show properties, I'm always like, they should have done something better. Like,
Right on the when you're so that's the other thing that's on the buyer side.
mhm.
So when you're showing people houses, and that's got to be a whole thing too, because you've got to help to counsel people through. Like they may come into you and they may be like, I want a 5 bedroom house with this and this and this, and I want to pay this amount, and you're like, well, I understand that's what you want, but right. So there's some definite discussions that have to happen in terms of what are your top priorities, what are the must-haves versus the I'd like to have, and then work from there, and then finding that house, which could be sometimes quick and sometimes not. But I guess that I was going to say maybe that's on the more fun side, but I guess either side really can be fun depending on the person and the specific situation. But what does that conversation sometimes look like with the buyer in terms of helping them to understand what is and isn't going to be possible in the current market or with current options available? Like if they say I need to live in this town, your only options are the houses that are for sale in that town. So that guidance, is that like is it a questionnaire, or is it more just an organic conversation?
Yeah, so we actually we do a buyer consultation similar and go over like the education process too. And then there's a page in there that is the three buckets, which are location, price, and then like the house itself. And so I'm like, just expect to probably get maybe two out of the three buckets within like these parameters because for example if they want to spend a certain amount of money they may not be able to afford a certain location, right? Or
Right.
they may not be able to afford like a certain feature in the house. And so again, setting those expectations is super important, and like going over everything on paper, it helps people understand. I mean, I'm sure you've seen house hunters are like, we look at a lot more than three houses, but uh,
Right.
but it's similar. You're like, okay, well, we're gonna have to up the budget if you want a house like this, or we're gonna have to go to a different location, or get a dated house or something like that. Like, it's all about compromise when you're buying, unless you're paying with cash and are a millionaire, or whatever.
Right, right. Well, and I think too the other thing which is relatable to staging, but it's its own gift as well. And I've noticed that everybody that I know that does real estate has this gift to some degree, which is walking into a space that's being used one way, but knowing all of the other ways that it could be used. Right. So if you're walking into a house and you're like, well, I really wanted a house that was going to have a home library, right? And the house is set up with the master bedroom and two little kids' rooms, right? And they're like, oh, well, this isn't really going to fit. And you're like, well, yes, because you could actually take that closet out and you could put a bookshelf there, right? Helping people to see in space what the space could be outside of what it currently is. And I think that's a gift as well, to kind of be able to see the canvas beyond what it already is. So, yeah, you're saying totally. Go ahead. You can respond to that. I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right because a lot of new agents don't have it either. And I'm like trying to list a house and sell it. And they're like, oh, well, they didn't like this room because they needed that. I'm like, oh, I was like, called the agent, like, can you tell your client that they can use this room for that? And, whatever, like
Right.
they should be able to visualize that for their client because their client won't be able to either. And same thing with other little things that could be touched up, like maybe some paint on the wall or something like that, where you're like,
Right.
I've actually had buyers complain about the furniture that's in there. You're like, well, you can change that. The couch doesn't come with the house, so it's
Yeah.
okay. But it is that's why staging again comes in, because people do have a hard time like having that vision and seeing, and even other agents that haven't walked the walk realize like that things can be changed. It's all about, again, like marketing, right? It's all about the marketing and the perception and making sure people can like see what it looks like when they live there.
Yeah, the room that I'm in right now, which is the bonus room, it's an above the garage type room. And when we looked at this house, this room was royal blue, like a dark, dark royal blue. They had three little boys, and the little boys were sleeping in the room. It was like a joint bedroom for them, and it was amazing. I mean, I can only imagine how cool it would have been for this to be a three little boys, big bedroom, right, type thing. But it was, what it's become now, and now it's got the beige walls and it's become an office area, and there's, areas for me to do other types of things in it, but it's very much a home office. It's gone through a couple other lives. It was also a home entertainment room at one point, but if you'd walked into the room, you wouldn't have seen it because of that color, right? Like you're talking about the staging, and it was like you walk into the room, it was very hard to see the room as something other than a little kid's room. And then you switch the paint and it'll, automatically changed. And so I think that that is important. And I think like that's something that I even tell people when they tell me that they're looking for a house and they haven't found what they're looking for, is just from my own experience from talking to people who are realtors, that like think outside the box, because a lot of times what you think isn't there is there. It takes a very little change. Removing the closet door to make that a bookshelf is not going to cost you a lot of time and money, and can make a big difference. So I think that that's really important. And do you find that it influences, being a realtor influences how you decorate or approach your own house just in general?
Yeah, there's definitely times, because I do look at a lot of like new construction and they have really nice staging typically. And then of course, like when my stager goes in there, I'm like, oh man, I need to have something like this. So I like go to like Marshalls or something and buy something that looks like it, and try to
Replicate it.
yeah, exactly, replicate it. Thank you, and make it look similar. And there have been times that I've been able to pull it off, but then other times I'm like, I shouldn't have done that. So
It's like Pinterest in real life. You're like looking at all these different houses and you're like, I want to do that. I do that. Like there'll be things that I'll take pictures of. I'll tell people I'm not like creeping around people's houses snapping pictures, but I'll be like, I love how you have that set up. Is it okay if I snap a picture? People I know, just to be clear here, I am not wandering into strangers' houses and taking pictures. This is going to be like the sound bite that goes viral, right? Like Deb Harrison randomly taking pictures. But I do like, I think that you do start to see things, and after a while, you start to notice like, oh, I really gravitate towards when those two colors are put together, or when the things are on that specific type of angle. So you start to like develop your preferences and stuff. And so that's helpful for me because I'm much better at seeing something and then trying to replicate it, though I still don't do a great job at that either. But a blank space to decorate. And I'm okay with it. I think like we all have our different gifts, right? So it's okay to acknowledge that. What is one of your favorite things? You can either be something just in general or like a story. Like what is something that has really excited you about being a realtor? And it can be again a specific something that happened or just in general.
well, like before I became one, or
Anything about being a realtor. What is it that excites you about that role that you have?
so the whole reason that I thought it would be cool, my growing up, my parents always like they thought they were house flippers, but really we were just living in like a construction zone our whole life until we moved out. But being able to see like the before and after is awesome. Like we've bought, this is our third house, and everyone will do like a little live-in flip or whatever. And make it look, just having the vision to look like going from like a 90s house or a 70s house to modern and like looking good. Like I feel like it's very fulfilling doing that.
Or
And
like on the investment front.
on the investment side, yeah. And then I work with a lot of investors too, and I get to go see what their house looks like when they buy it. And then when they sell it, I'm like, wow, you guys did such a great job. Like, this is awesome. And it's just super fun to see those ideas. And, obviously trends change and stuff. And so that's kind of interesting to see too. Like, good thing you're selling this because this probably won't be popular in like 3 years.
I've seen a couple of those where I've like, I'll go on Zillow just because it's fun to like look at houses for sale in the area. And, I'll watch like I've seen the house and then I'll see like on the outside, like, oh, it's had stuff done to it. So then you like look at the pictures online and you see it. And there have been a couple times where like it was like a really cool farmhouse and they like completely modernized it. And I know that I tend towards kind of liking when something has got that old style to it, to kind of trying to capture that a little bit. So when something is completely remade into totally modern, like, black marble countertops, I'm not opposed to them. But again, in like an old farmhouse, there's been a couple times where I'm like, oh, but it had such a character to it. Again, I don't have a great fashion sense for decorating, so I might be completely off. But my personal preference in those situations is to kind of feel like I would have liked it to be maintained in its historical sense. But how do people, so if people want to work with you, so obviously you're probably not working all across the country. I'm sure that your clients are mostly in that area, but I imagine that people who may be buying elsewhere, given the fact that you have such an interest in being informed and educating people about it, if they're considering investing, right, buying and investing, selling, or just buying for, consumer purposes, you could offer advice and tips to them like, hey, here's Tanya's top tips on what you need to know. So how do people get in touch with you? What's the best way for them to follow you and know you?
Yeah, you can find me anywhere on all the platforms that Tanya sells sunshine. And it's easy. Yeah. I like to refer to my houses as sunshine because that's what people are really, that's where you live. You want to make sure that it's like your happy place, right?
And you've got the sun in the back and you've got the yellow decor in the back there and you're wearing the yellow shirt. So I was like, very brand. I like it. That was really on point.
That's
So, okay. So they could find you at Tanya Sells Sunshine. Any spaces, no spaces, just straight.
Yep, all together, like on
Okay.
Instagram or Facebook. I think even on LinkedIn, it's like that too.
Excellent. And then, final thoughts for people. What is some final thought that you want to give them? Can be about real estate or just about anything.
I would say very popular Bible verse. It's "Be the light." I think it's Matthew 9:14. I don't even know. I actually
Five, yeah.
I saw it on one of my son's teacher's shirts today, and I'm like, I need that shirt. And it was like,
Yeah, I have that all over the house. I have it on sweatshirts, plaques.
yeah,
But let me let you elaborate. It sounded like you were still going, so I don't want to cut you off. So be the light.
no, that's it. And
Okay.
trust in God. Like that's actually like why I am where I am today is because God's led me here. So I'm
Yeah,
just
that's
very
beautiful.
grateful. Yeah.
Yeah, and the more we're the light, the more other people are their light because they see it and they go like, what is that? What is that that's going on there? I want a piece of that. So we help it and we spread it out. So yes, it's my favorite as well. So I love that you picked that. And thank you. Thank you very much for taking your time. Thank you for answering all my questions. There will probably be more questions that will come now because I love to learn and I love what I can tell is a wealth of knowledge there. It does make me want to get off this call and go stand out in the sunshine for a little bit because we've all this talk of sunshine. I'm like, oh, it's some time for some actually got to get that sun shining down. I thank everybody that has joined us today, whether you've joined live or whether you're watching the recording after the fact. I encourage you to reach out to Tanya. As Tanya said, be the light. That's such a beautiful final thought for us all. And thank you again. Thank you for you. Thank you for everybody that's joined us.
Thank you, Deb. It was really fun. I had a good time. I enjoyed it.
All right. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye.